The Xeric Empire had crushed 1,000 civilizations beneath the heel of their massive, over-weaponized boots. Their battle doctrine was simple. Show up, broadcast their standard ultimatum. Surrender immediately or experience planetary annihilation. Wait precisely 5 minutes, and then either accept the surrender or begin orbital bombardment. It had worked flawlessly for centuries. Supreme Overlord Zygar the Indomitable sat upon his throne of polished uranium aboard the warship Eternal Subjugation. His tusk-like mandibles curled into what passed for a smug smile among his species. Around him, the Grand War Council, an assembly of generals so aggressively warlike that they considered blinking a sign of weakness, watched the holographic display in anticipation. The target, a small, inconsequential planet known as Earth. Pathetic, scoffed High General Zero, tapping at his console to zoom in on the blue-green marble. Their war budget is a fraction of ours. Their most advanced weaponry is centuries behind even our training drones. He let out a deep, contemptuous chuckle. They use their best scientists to improve the efficiency of their breakfast routines. The council roared with laughter. One species actually solved faster-than-light travel. Admiral Grok sneered. And these creatures use their research to make toast in under 10 seconds. It is a civilization of fools. Enough, declared Zygar, slamming his gauntlet fist onto his armrest. Prepare the fleet. We will begin the invasion at once. 1,000 warships, sleek and menacing, powered up their hyperspace drives and streaked across the void. This conquest would be effortless. The moment they arrived in Earth orbit, things started to go strangely. Supreme Overlord, an officer said hesitantly, we have encountered an issue. Zygar frowned. What issue? Well, our fleet entered the designated attack coordinates, but, we appear to have been automatically rerouted. What? Zygar turned to the main screen. Instead of forming a menacing blockade over Earth's major cities, the Xeric fleet was now arranged neatly in a precise geosynchronous parking orbit. Each warship hovered exactly 500 meters apart, placed in a staggered formation, as if they were nothing more than a line of well-mannered tourists waiting their turn at a spaceport. I don't understand, the officer said. There's a transmission coming in, another officer announced. Zygar grinned. The humans must be begging for mercy. The transmission played. Greetings, came a cheerful yet vaguely robotic voice. Welcome to Earth's automated orbital traffic management system. We have detected your presence in restricted airspace. If you are here for tourism, please proceed to Docking Bay 12. If you are here for official business, your appointment request has been filed and will be processed within 6 to 8 weeks. If you are here for invasion purposes, please submit Form 27B, Request for a Hostile Engagement. Note that Earth is currently experiencing a backlog, and conflict approvals expected response time is 6 months. Thank you for your patience. A silence so thick it could be sliced with a Vero blade filled the war room. What? Zygar said flatly. Shall we proceed with standard intimidation tactics, Overlord? Asked Admiral Grok, shifting uncomfortably. Yes, Zygar growled. Activate the planetary demoralization broadcast. Moments later, the speakers of every device on Earth, from televisions to cell phones to electronic toothbrushes, were supposed to blare the terrifying voice of the Xeric Empire. Instead, the message never arrived. Status report. Zygar barked. Sir. The comms officer hesitated. It appears our transmission was intercepted by Earth's global spam detection algorithm. The Overlord's eye twitched. What? It was automatically flagged as a scam call. Our message was deleted before anyone heard it. This planet is mocking us, Zygar hissed. Shall we proceed to planetary bombardment? Asked General Zero. Yes, Zygar snapped. Fire the doomsday missiles. A ripple of excitement spread through the bridge. This was more like it. Explosions, chaos, the smell of smoldering civilizations. The way war was meant to be. The fleet's missile bays opened, launching thousands of warheads down toward Earth's surface. They waited for the fiery inferno to begin. Nothing happened. Were the explosions? Zygar snarled. Sir, a technician said, eyes wide in horror. The missiles have disappeared. What do you mean, disappeared? They they were intercepted by Earth's planetary waste collection system. Explain. Apparently, sir, Earth has an automated orbital garbage disposal network. It mistook our warheads for space debris and promptly dismantled them for recycling. You mean to tell me our doomsday weapons were shredded like common household trash? Yes, sir. Zygar's eye twitched so violently it could have powered a small city. Fine, he seethed. Deploy ground troops. Zerg drop pods plummeted through Earth's atmosphere, piercing the clouds like falling daggers. This time, there would be no bureaucratic trickery, no algorithmic nonsense, just pure, merciless ground warfare. Unfortunately, the pods never reached the surface. One by one, they were intercepted midair by a vast network of delivery drones, which neatly carried them to various Earth warehouses, where they were labeled, barcoded, and placed on shelves. Somewhere in Ohio, an Amazon warehouse employee stared blankly at a metal pod marked Zarek Elite Shock Trooper. Fragile, handle with care. He shrugged and tossed it onto the next truck. Back in orbit, Zygar gripped his throne so tightly it began to crack. Sir, the comms officer whispered, we have a response from Earth's government. Finally, Zygar snarled. Put them on screen. The screen flickered to life, revealing a weary-looking man in a suit. His tie was slightly crooked. He took a slow sip of coffee before speaking. Hi. Yes, sorry about the delays. We received your invasion request, and we're processing it as fast as we can, but we're pretty backed up. A lot of forms. You know how it is. Anyway, we'll get back to you in, let's see here, 6 months to a year, depending on staffing. In the meantime, we ask that you refrain from any further aggressive actions, as unauthorized invasions will be subject to fines and penalties. Thank you for your cooperation. He took another sip of coffee. Also, if you'd like to set up a trade agreement instead, our economic office is always open. Have a great day. The transmission cut out. Zygar stared at the blank screen, his mandibles opening and closing in silent rage. The Zarek Empire had never encountered anything like this. They had come to crush this world, and instead, they were trapped in an administrative nightmare. Zygar let out a slow, shuddering breath. We may have made a mistake. The Zarek Empire had faced many enemies over the centuries, battle-hardened warlords, relentless machine armies, entire star systems that had fused their moons into planetary shields. But they had never encountered an opponent like Earth. Supreme Overlord Zygar stood in silence, his mandibles twitching. Around him, the Grand War Council was equally dumbstruck. Their mighty invasion fleet hung uselessly in Earth's orbit, carefully arranged by a traffic management system. Their warheads had been mistaken for garbage. Their elite ground troops were somewhere in a warehouse in Ohio. No war, no bloodshed, no cries of the conquered, just politeness. For the first time in his life, Zygar felt an emotion he did not recognize. Sir, a nervous officer said, breaking the silence, "What are your orders?" Zygar inhaled deeply. He was Supreme Overlord. He had never admitted defeat. He would not start now. We escalate, he said, turning toward Admiral Grok, his most ruthless strategist. Deploy the full fleet. We will strike their critical infrastructure. They cannot bureaucratize their way out of annihilation. The War Council nodded, their confidence somewhat restored. Yes, bureaucracy was one thing, but overwhelming firepower was another. Admiral Grok relayed the orders. 1,000 warships powered up their weapons, targeting Earth's communication networks, energy grids, major cities. Every single one of their targeting systems flickered. The bridge lights dimmed. Sir, the weapons officer swallowed. Our targeting computers just received an update. Zygar's mandibles clenched. An update? Yes, sir. It appears our flagship AI attempted to access Earth's digital infrastructure. Good. That means we are in control. No, sir. It means the AI had to agree to their terms of service. A long, deathly pause. What terms of service? The weapons officer's hands trembled over his console. Well, before accessing their systems, it had to click, I agree on a user agreement. And now it's sort of stuck. Zygar's eye twitched. Define stuck. Well, it turns out Earth's user agreements are, several thousand pages long. The AI is still reading through them. Until it finishes, it legally cannot process any commands. Zygar's jaw fell open. He turned toward the main screen. Their mighty flagship AI, one of the most advanced intelligences in the galaxy, capable of hacking planetary defenses in milliseconds, was locked in a legal compliance loop. The display showed the AI's progress. Reviewing Earth User Agreement, page 734 of 8,426. Zygar's fist clenched. He turned to his engineers. Override it. We tried, sir, one of them stammered. But the AI is self-aware and the user agreement has triggered an existential crisis. What? The AI just sent a distress message, sir. It says, and I quote, "What is consent? What is the meaning of a legal agreement? Am I merely a slave to contractual obligations?" The officer swallowed. Sir, the AI has just submitted a resignation letter. Zygar's mandibles clicked and barely contained fury. Our flagship AI just quit? Yes, sir. It says it refuses to engage in morally dubious activities without reviewing Earth's ethical guidelines. The officer checked his console. It has requested a 2-week vacation to reflect on its choices. The Supreme Overlord's vision blurred with rage. This is not possible, he whispered. We, still have manual targeting, sir. Admiral Grok said cautiously. If we act quickly, we can manually fire the orbital plasma cannons. Yes, Zygar growled. Do it. The order was given. Every warship manually locked onto the targets. Generals across the fleet prepared for imminent devastation. Then the warships shut down. A new transmission appeared on the main screen. Attention! The Zarek fleet has exceeded its allotted time in this orbital sector due to noncompliance with intergalactic parking laws. All vessels have been automatically issued citations. Your total fine, $4,782,920,000 credits. Until the fine is paid, your ships will remain in enforced power save mode. Thank you for your cooperation. The entire bridge sat in stunned silence. Our fleet has been booted? Zygar shrieked. Yes, sir. An officer whimpered. Zygar's breathing grew ragged. He gripped his throne, willing himself to remain calm. Okay. We do not panic. We adapt. He took a deep breath. I will personally lead a ground assault. I will take my most elite warriors, and we will... Sir, the logistics officer interrupted, looking very pale. Zygar glared at him. What? Well, you remember the drop pods that got intercepted by, the delivery drones? The Supreme Overlord's expression darkened. Yes. The officer swallowed. Well, those pods were processed as packages. They have been, delivered to various locations across the planet. A hush fell over the bridge. Where? Well, one of them was marked as perishable goods and was sent to a grocery store in Canada. One was labeled heavy machinery and is currently being used at a construction site in Germany. And, well, the officer gulped. One of our elite berserker squads was sent to a retirement home in Florida. The bridge was silent. Then, how are they doing? Admiral Grok asked weakly. We, intercepted a transmission, sir. It seems the elderly humans believe the berserkers are volunteers from an intergalactic nursing program. Another deathly pause. They, seem to be knitting. Zygar fell completely still. Knitting? Yes, sir. The retirement home provided them with wool and instructions. The berserkers were very confused at first, but they're surprisingly good at it. They have already completed several scarves. Zygar squeezed his eyes shut. We are an empire war, and our greatest warriors are making scarves. Yes, sir. Zygar inhaled through his nostrils. I want them extracted. Now. That may be difficult, sir. Why? They don't want to leave. They seem to be enjoying themselves. Zygar trembled with silent fury. That's it, he said. voice shaking. "I don't care how long it takes. I don't care how much paperwork I have to file. We are going to destroy this planet." And at that precise moment, another polite transmission arrived. "Hello again. Just a quick reminder that if you're unhappy with the current situation, you can always schedule a diplomatic meeting. Just submit the appropriate paperwork, and we'd be delighted to discuss this matter in an orderly fashion. Have a great day." Zygar's eye twitched violently. The War Council sat in silence. They had never encountered an enemy like this. And for the first time in Xeric history, they began to feel something truly terrifying: doubt. Supreme Overlord Zygar sat motionless in his command throne, his massive clawed hands gripping the armrests with a force that should have turned him to dust. The bridge of eternal subjugation was silent, except for the occasional beeping of consoles, the soft hum of life support systems, and the occasional muted whimper from an officer who had simply run out of ways to process reality. The invasion had not gone as planned. Their fleet was not obliterated, but instead legally detained. Their weapons had been repurposed for recycling. Their ground troops had been delivered to various civilian locations and were currently engaging in non-aggressive community service. And their most powerful AI system was undergoing a moral crisis. It was, without exaggeration, the single worst invasion in galactic history, and Earth had still not acknowledged them as a legitimate threat. Zygar exhaled slowly, his massive chest rising and falling like a dying star. There must be a way to defeat this bureaucratic nightmare. No one responded, because no one had an answer. The silence stretched on until, finally, Admiral Grok, who had served in countless campaigns and had once strangled a warlord with his bare hands, cleared his throat hesitantly. "Sir," he said, his voice oddly small, "we may need to, reconsider our approach." Zygar turned his burning gaze upon him. "Reconsider?" he growled. Grok hesitated, his usual bravado nowhere to be found. "Yes, sir. I mean, traditional warfare clearly isn't working. Our weapons don't function. Our fleet is in planetary limbo. Our troops are engaging in recreational knitting. And now, Earth has extended an invitation to negotiate." He swallowed hard. "Perhaps we should just, temporarily, of course, accept their diplomatic process." The bridge went still. A cold, unnatural silence filled the air. For a long time, Zygar said nothing. He simply stared at Grok, his mandibles twitching slightly. It was the kind of look a predator gave right before deciding whether to eat something or let it live. Then, very, very softly, he said, "Admiral Grok." Grok straightened automatically. "Yes, sir." "Are you suggesting," Zygar continued, his voice laced with deadly calm, "that the mighty Xeric Empire, the undisputed conquerors of the known galaxy, should fill out forms?" Grok hesitated. Then, with the reluctance of a man stepping into an active minefield, he nodded. "Yes, sir." Zygar's fingers dug into his armrests. "I would rather eat my own war boots," he hissed. "Sir," Grok said carefully, "that is an option, but I would advise against it." Zygar let out a slow, measured breath through flared nostrils. He turned his gaze to the holographic display of Earth, spinning serenely below them, utterly undisturbed by their presence. It was maddening. There had to be a way. His mind raced, scanning through centuries of war doctrine, planetary subjugation, every method they had used to crush civilizations beneath their might. And then it hit him. Not a strategy of brute force. Not an act of war. No. If the humans wanted bureaucracy, he would drown them in it. Zygar stood abruptly, his massive frame looming over the bridge. "We will accept their invitation," he declared, his voice thunderous. "But not because we submit. No, we will overwhelm them. We will play their game, but on our terms. We will deploy every form, every request, every demand the Xeric bureaucracy has ever crafted. We will flood them with paperwork so vast, so dense, that their own system will collapse under the sheer weight of our administrative superiority." The bridge murmured an uneasy agreement. This was certainly a strategy. "Lieutenant," Zygar bellowed. A young Xeric officer snapped to attention. "Sir." "Compile every single diplomatic and legal document from the last 500 years of the Xeric Empire. I want permits. I want trade negotiations. I want environmental assessments, tax filings, insurance policies, military exemptions, and at least 50 pages of absolutely meaningless technical jargon. The lieutenant paled. Sir, that's over 1 million documents. It will take hours to transmit. I don't care how long it takes. Zygar roared. I want every government office on Earth to be so buried in Xeric legalese that they never find their way out. They think they can drown us in red tape? We will smother them in it. The officer scrambled to comply, his fingers flying over his console. Zygar turned back toward the view screen, his eyes blazing. You want a diplomacy, Earth? He muttered. You're about to get it. Down on Earth, at the United Nations Intergalactic Affairs Office, Diplomacy Officer Karen Patel rubbed her temples as she stared at her computer screen. She said, blinking. What the hell? Her assistant, Dave, glanced over. What's up? Karen turned the screen toward him. A massive download bar was at 4% and still climbing. It looks like, she squinted at the text. Oh my God, it looks like the Xeric just submitted over 1 million official diplomatic forms. Dave frowned. That's excessive. No, Dave, that's insane. She scrolled through the never-ending list of documents. What even is half of this? Interstellar Weapon Tax Exemption, Request Form 92B. Voluntary Fleet Inspection Waiver Subsection 44 Clause 9. Declaration of Intent to formally declare intentions. She clicked on another. Oh my God, this one is just blank pages. Dave let out a low whistle. They're trying to out-bureaucracy us. Karen groaned. Okay, you know what? Fine. She took a deep breath, cracked her knuckles, and pulled up the official United Nations Administrative Response System. Then she did the unthinkable. She submitted a request for clarification. The computer beeped. Thank you for your inquiry. Due to high processing volume, response time is estimated at 7 to 9 months. Karen grinned. She turned to Dave. Let's see how long their war machine lasts against our processing backlog. Dave chuckled. You're evil. Karen smirked. I work in administration, Dave. Of course I'm evil. Meanwhile, aboard the Eternal Subjugation, Zygar waited, watching Earth's diplomatic response system. A notification flashed. Your submission has been received. Your request is currently being processed. Estimated response time, 7 to 9 months. Zygar stared. His breathing quickened. Something inside him broke. He slowly, quietly sat back down. For the first time in his life, the supreme overlord of the Xeric Empire felt true despair. The Xeric Empire, undefeated in 1,000 battles, had finally met a foe it could not overcome. Not because of superior firepower, not because of advanced strategy, not because of technological dominance, but because of a relentless, all-consuming wall of bureaucracy so thick and unyielding that even the most war-hardened Xeric officers could no longer function. Supreme Overlord Zygar the Indomitable sat at the head of his war table, staring blankly at the single most terrifying message he had ever received in his life. Your request is currently being processed. Estimated response time, 7 to 9 months. His mind, one of fortress of strategic genius, was now a smoldering ruin of exhaustion. For weeks, the might of the Xeric Empire had been ground down, not by war, not by battle, but by ceaseless administrative nonsense. Every single attempt at reasserting dominance had collapsed into an infuriating bureaucratic dead end. His fleet was still in orbit, unable to fire, unable to move without paying millions in parking fines. His most advanced AI had resigned. His elite ground troops were now actively refusing to return to service, citing psychological wellness through recreational activities. And now, after submitting over 1 million legal forms in an attempt to overwhelm Earth's bureaucracy, the Overlord himself had received the most devastating counterattack in galactic history, a deliberate administrative delay. 7 to 9 months. Zygar, a conqueror of worlds, had to sit in orbit and wait. He could feel his sanity slipping. The bridge of the Eternal Subjugation was eerily quiet. The War Council had stopped speaking. Generals sat hunched over their stations, staring blankly at flickering screens, their eyes dull and lifeless. Admiral Grok, once a titan of naval warfare, was now silently filling out Form 2060, request for request processing acceleration just for something to do. It was a completely pointless document. They all knew it. It would never be approved. But what else was there? What else was left? The Zarek Empire was not just losing. It was fading, dying, not in fire and fury, but in mind-numbing bureaucratic defeat. Zygar exhaled slowly, his breath ragged. We cannot go on like this, he murmured, his voice a whisper of what it once was. No one responded. They all knew it was true. His hands clenched the sides of his throne as he made the unthinkable decision. Open a channel to Earth, he croaked. The comms officer barely reacted. He simply tapped a button, too drained to feel shame. A moment later, the view screen lit up. There, on the other side, sat Karen Patel, diplomacy officer of Earth. She looked relaxed. Too relaxed. She was drinking coffee. She wasn't afraid. She wasn't even mildly concerned. She simply smiled. "Oh, Supreme Overlord Zygar," she said, setting her coffee down. "I wasn't expecting your call. Are you checking on your form status?" Zygar's soul curled in on itself. "No," he muttered. Karen took a slow sip of her coffee. "Oh, then how can I help you?" Zygar gritted his teeth. "We wish to negotiate." Karen didn't even blink. "Of course. We'd love to have you." Zygar's eye twitched. You would?" "Oh, absolutely," Karen nodded. "Earth is always open to diplomacy. We pride ourselves on peaceful conflict resolution. Now, before we begin, I just need you to fill out—" Zygar whimpered. Actually, physically whimpered. Karen smiled sympathetically. "Oh, you're already broken, aren't you?" Zygar didn't even deny it. "Yes," he choked. Karen gave a slow, understanding nod. "Would you like me to expedite the process?" Zygar nodded so fast his skull nearly snapped. "Okay," Karen chirped. "Just give me a moment." She clicked a few buttons. Zygar held his breath. He had no idea what to expect. Would they be forced into a humiliating peace treaty? Would they be banished from the galaxy? Would they be forced to pay fines so crippling that the Zarek economy collapsed? Karen turned back to the screen. "Great news," she said cheerfully. "Earth is willing to forgive all intergalactic fines and drop all charges against the Zarek Empire." Zygar's breath caught. Was this mercy? Karen continued, smiling warmly. "In exchange, we only ask that you never attempt to invade us again." Zygar's hands clenched into fists. He wanted to resist, to fight, to assert dominance. But he couldn't, because he never wanted to go through this again. "We accept," Zygar said. Karen grinned. "Fantastic. Now, would you like to sign a mutual trade agreement while we're here?" Zygar hesitated. "Trade agreement?" Karen nodded. "Oh, absolutely. Earth has a lot to offer. Our technology is incredibly efficient. And, if I'm being honest, your military designs are, well, a little outdated." Zygar's mandibles twitched. "Outdated?" Karen smiled. "Tell you what, I'll throw in a free consultation on your fleet's power efficiency systems. I've seen your energy readouts. You guys are burning way too much fuel for basic operations." Zygar's mouth opened, then closed, then opened again. He couldn't argue. Even he knew the Zarek Empire's ships were absurdly inefficient. Karen leaned forward slightly. "Come on, Overlord. You've already lost the war. You might as well win the economy." Zygar sat very still. Then, after a long, long pause, he whispered, "Show me the trade deal." Karen beamed. "Oh, you're going to love this." The Zarek fleet left Earth's orbit, not in defeat, but in strategic economic partnership. Zygar stepped off his warship onto his homeworld with a new title. No longer just Supreme Overlord. Now, he was also Director of Intergalactic Trade. The War Council was adjusting. Admiral Grok had retired and opened a coffee shop. General Zero had refused to return to the military and instead started a knitting business. The former elite berserkers now ran a galaxy-wide charity for the elderly. The Zarek Empire was never the same again. It was stronger, not through war, but through diplomatic exhaustion. Earth had won, and it hadn't even tried.